What's up, everybody? My name is Scott Waters. Welcome to No Life to Metal. We are back. We're back.
We are back.
First time in 2.5 years.
Who are we?
We are Trog.
I'm Trog.
And I'm Scott, as you know. And yeah, we're going to be doing one of our hard and heavy series. This time it's going to be 1990.
Yep.
So 80s are done. 70s are done.
And when's the last time we were together? 2.5 years ago?
Years, yeah. And then,
wow.
And then COVID hit and messed everything up.
Sorta.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a big reason for it.
So 1990. I'm not going to have as much to say, I don't think, this time, but that's all right. I'll probably.
So we're starting at number 30.
30.
We got a list.
I think we got
time.
35.
35. And that's
35. We're going to do a 35 countdown.
And that's out of I think we had at least 50, if not more.
Oh yeah, at least.
At least. So yeah. All right, here we go. So we're going to start off with number 35.
35. And remember, this isn't an exact science until we get like to the top 5 or so, right?
Yeah. So all right, we're going to start off with Testament.
Souls of Black.
Souls of Black. So this would have been their what, 1, 2, 3, 4th album, I believe. 1989. This is an album that to me, I love Testament. I've seen them live several times. I think their first 3 albums are brilliant. I think this one sounds a little rushed.
This one was after New World Order, right?
Yes, and it was rushed. They rushed this thing out to go on that tour with Anthrax and a couple other bands. So it was Anthrax, Slayer, and Testament.
I think I saw them the year before with Wrathchild America, actually.
Oh, cool.
That was a cool show.
That's a cool show, yeah. But the title track on this thing is brilliant. And in retrospect, I think it's a better album than I thought it was when it first came out. Love the cover art. But
cover art's awesome. We were just talking about it yesterday. I was like, can you imagine if you actually came upon these guys, like for real? You wouldn't be sitting there like, maybe you would, Bill and Ted, like, oh dude, excellent, cool. Just like the album cover. No, you'd probably be shitting your pants. That's what I think. I probably would.
Yeah, but it's a decent album. But it's definitely not my favorite Testament, but it's definitely worthy of being in the top 35 for 1990.
Yep.
It definitely sounds like Testament. I mean, you wouldn't think this is any other band. Alex Skolnick is a total shredder, and Eric Peterson, of course, one of the main songwriters. Just a good album. Thrash, of course.
So what else was going on in 1990? Lots of stuff. Gulf War was heating up.
Yeah.
Right? I had just left DT Seizure. Major world event.
Now for me, I had become super Christian at that year. That's the year I got involved heavily in a church who convinced me to get rid of all my music.
Oh, so, was it 1990?
Yep. So that's why
1990 was a pivotal year, I think.
Yeah.
For a lot of people.
You're gonna see a lot of albums in here that may not be in most people's list because that's just what I was into that year.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, and I definitely was steering away from the metal in a big way, especially once I left DT Seizure, I think.
All right, so number 34.
Departure in styles for these guys. The Bumblebees traded in their yellow and black for some black and white jail stripes against the law, striper.
And then they grew themselves beards and tried for a tougher sound. I actually think this is a really good album.
Yeah, there's some good tracks on here.
There are some really cheesy tracks on here, but let's just go through real quick.
Well, the big one that hooked me was Shining Star, the Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Earth, Wind and Fire cover.
Really I think that's a great track.
It is a great track.
I think the song Against the Law is great.
Yeah.
I think
Rock the Hell Out of You
is a great song. Caught in the Middle is an excellent song. It's one of their best songs. I really like the ballad Lady as well. I think it's a great song.
I remember that one.
Yep. But then there's a couple other songs on here like Not That Kind of Guy. Oh, come on. That's just... I get it. I get you're trying to have a morality thing going on here, but it's just...
It's like DC Talk. I don't want your sex for now.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. It's hard to talk about certain things without coming off goofy.
Yeah, just goofy, yeah. But, I mean, Two-Time Woman was okay. Rock the People was a decent song. Two Bodies, One Mind, One Soul was okay.
But I was supposed to see Striper on this tour. I remember they were coming. I had just met Michelle. Actually, that would have been 91. And they canceled. They were coming to Phoenix, and they canceled the show.
Yeah, because Michael Sweet quit to do his solo thing.
Right. Then I saw Michael Sweet a couple years later doing his solo thing.
But yeah, I think it's a good album. It's definitely different, heavier. It's got a big Van Halen flair to me. I definitely think that they stepped up.
That's what they're after. I think I remember reading interviews, and he was saying we're going more for a boogie rock kind of sound. I wouldn't call it boogie.
No.
I see what they were.
I mean, Caught in the Middle and Rock the Hell Out of You, and I mean that's even Against the Wall. It's just straight up standard metal.
Yeah.
but whatever. I like it.
Striper was a metal band. They never not.
Alright, so 33 is one of the greats from the
Bay Area
thrash. However, most people would not consider this one of their best albums.
I gave up on Exodus early just because I got out of thrash. Bonded by Blood was my beginning and end, pretty much. I liked a bunch of the rest of the stuff, but Bonded by Blood, I loved that album.
Did you see him live back in those days?
Yeah, I saw him live in '84. It was, no, I've mentioned it before, Hyrax, Exodus, Legacy, a.k.a. Testament, and Megadeth.
Man, what a great show.
At Ruthie's Inn.
Ruthie's Inn, nice. Yeah, that's a classic.
It was a massive show. I'd never seen a thrash show prior to that. We were scared to death. We were like, oh my god, we're going to get killed.
But I like this album a lot. It's just straightforward thrash.
What's on here?
The song Thrash Under Pressure was one that Ultimatum nearly covered on our Lex Metalis album.
Oh, okay.
It was one of the ones that we were working on, and unfortunately it's just, we had too many songs, and it's one that the consensus, well, it was a consensus thing, you know. So
Lunatic Parade, I think, is Lunatic Parade, I think, is the one I'm most familiar with.
Yeah, Lunatic Parade was a single for the album. As a matter of fact, the single's right behind you. The B-side of the single had it's a cassette on the bottom. Don't worry about it.
Oh, forget it.
Yeah, it's the B-side for that single was they covered Free For All, Ted Nugent.
Oh, okay.
Really cool song, but
I didn't realize that.
Great album. I always like the cover art too. It's kind of funny.
Got a big silver ball rolling down probably the Bay Area Bridge.
But it's just thrash. If you like Exodus, I just don't understand why you wouldn't like this. If you like the two albums before it, there's nothing reason you wouldn't like this one. I mean, after that they got a little goofier, but
so the two albums before this were both with Steve Sousa.
Yes, and that's Steve Sousa as well.
Okay, so this is their third album with him.
Yep.
All right, next. I know nothing about this one.
So number 33, I think it was.
No, 30. Sorry.
That's all right. It's not really that important, but
32.
Anne Boleyn and Hellion. I love this album.
The Black Book.
I don't have this particular album on vinyl yet. I'd love to get it on vinyl. To me, this is one of her best albums. It's one of the best produced albums. The songs are all hooky and memorable. Great musicianship. Her vocals are, I mean, if you know who Anne Boleyn is, you know her vocals. She's got that kind of screechy, she kind of is spread between singing and screechy, but she's just a fantastic singer. She's one of my favorite female vocalists, but I love the Black Book. It's like I said, it's probably one of my favorites, if not my favorite from Hellion. Just classic heavy metal with female vocals.
I mix up Hellion and Bitch all the time.
And they got a similar vibe,
yeah.
You know, and both of them,
because they both got brunette lead singers, women.
Yeah.
So.
And it's a similar vibe, yeah. But,
yeah.
And I think they both were around the same time too. But then Anne Boleyn actually started her own label, New Renaissance. So,
ah, okay. And Anne Boleyn was the name of one of Henry VIII's wives, I believe.
Yeah. So I'm not sure.
I'm thinking that's probably your stage name, but maybe
probably
not.
Yeah, it probably is. In any case, great album. Straightforward heavy metal, female vocals, a classic.
All right.
This one I could say a lot about.
All right, we're up to 31. RECON.
Behind
enemy lines.
Yeah, it's all high pitched and stuff. I've got like 5 different versions of this thing. It's been re-released several times, and every time they put it out, it sells out again. Yep. One and done, pretty much, band.
Yep. All the guys went on to do other things.
Right. So RECON are a band from Southern California, very much in the style of early Queensryche, like the first EP. Would be my thing. Those high-pitched operatic vocals, male vocals, the galloping riffs, pushing the borders of thrash, kind of like Queen of the Reich pushed that border.
Yep.
You got that kind of stuff in here, but then you also got the more melodic tracks like Dreams with the harmonized vocals. I mean, it's just, I'd call this U.S. power metal, straightforward heavy metal, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Freaking awesome album. George Ochoa was the main man in the band. He's the guitar player, pictured on the top up here. He ended up... this actually got recorded when George had joined Deliverance to do Weapons of Our Warfare. RECON never got signed, but then they ended up getting signed to Intense, which is the same label Deliverance was on, and they recorded the album, and it finally came out.
Okay.
Like I said, one and done. They did do a live album, too.
And Mike Grotto was on this as well?
Mike Grotto played bass, buddy of ours. Yep, Mike Grotto.
Singer?
The singer's name was Vet Roberts. And he sang on this, he sang on the live album. They did it, but I've seen these guys live several times, but never once with Vet singing.
Huh.
Always with other singers.
And who was the second guitar player?
Eddie Starline, super nice guy, and I believe he's related to Oz Fox of some sort.
Okay.
Cousins or some of that nature. And
drums?
actually, if you look at him, he looks kind of like Oz Fox.
Oh, I get different pictures.
That's him there.
Okay. And drummer on this?
Drummer would be
I don't have any of that info.
Johnny Gonzalez.
Okay.
Johnny Gonzalez, and now out of this band, so you got Johnny Gonzalez, Mike Grotto, George Ochoa. Those three guys all ended up in Deliverance and did the Weapons of Our Warfare tour together.
Okay, I thought there was a strong tie with Deliverance on this.
And as a matter of fact, the last song in here, Behind Enemy Lines, I believe that Jimmy Brown wrote part of that song from Deliverance, and I think he even might have played the guitar solo on it. So.
Okay.
So there you go. I mean, it's a classic. If you know anything about U.S. power metal, that classic Queensrÿche style heavy metal, you probably know this album. It's an underground classic. So
I have it, not super familiar with it. I got into it way late. In fact, Justin is the one who gave me a copy of that.
Justin Freer, former guitar player for, well, many bands.
TOURNIQUET mainly, but
he played in Ultimatum for a while. And,
that's right. Troglodyte Dawn.
Yep. He
Blind 7.
passed away
2 years ago.
2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, yeah. All right, number, whatever, 30-something.
Yeah, here's another one that you'll just take the lead on. Yeah, number 30.
Number 30. All right, so this band... So as I said in the beginning of the video, I was going to a church that kind of convinced me to get rid of all my evil secular music, and so I was looking.
Thanks for that, by the way.
Yeah, so I was looking for something. I was looking for metal. I wanted some metal, So I walked into this bookstore, this Christian bookstore, and I met this dude in there. His name was Robert Gutierrez from Ultimatum. Ding! He was the music buyer in this big store, and he threw this cassette at me, and it was for Holy Soldier, and it was just a one-song cassette. And what's the name of the song now? I can't remember.
It was Break Down the Walls. Or
yeah, Tear Down the Walls.
Tear Down the Walls.
So I had a cassette deck in my beater Toyota at the time, and I played that song on loop over and over. And it's such a great song. It's just straightforward heavy metal. Again, this is Southern California band. Very much obviously a glammy look. But yeah, great band. Stephen Patrick vocalist
familiar
again.
Black and yellow color scheme.
Well,
sort of.
It's just a cow skin. They didn't ever wear the stripes. It was all leather, and this guy always wore the military stuff.
But they're coming from that same
place,
the
same
basically.
place. Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, we both shared the stage with them.
Yes, we did.
At Up From the Ashes 1 in 2005.
Yep, and that show was
in Anaheim.
And that show for them was a freaking disaster.
Was it?
That was not the show where yes, it was Up From the Ashes 1. That was a show where they were having the rolling blackouts in California, and they kept losing power in the middle of their set, and it was really
I don't remember
upsetting
that.
Yeah, we didn't stick around for much of their show because I had done 2 sets that day. I was exhausted.
Oh, that's right, because you sang for Once Dead.
I sang for So anyhow.
And Tychus played there too. So.
Yep, yeah. So we ended up only staying for a little bit of the set. However, they did bring Larry Farkas up on stage and jam a Zeppelin song, and which we missed, I know, but
yeah, I didn't see it either.
Regardless, that's got nothing to do with this. Again,
Holy Soldier.
If you like that Striper album we showed, this is not that far off from that. It's just melodic, straightforward heavy metal with very clean, high vocals, big hooks, a couple ballads. They look the part for sure. Here's some pictures in the back there. So.
And this is another Rocks Records.
That's a Rocks Records reissue, yeah.
Cool. All right, we are at number. Man, I wish I could just get this phone to stay on for a minute. Number 29. Mr. Dirk Schneider's solo outing, solo band, whatever.
Yep, it was his band,
Udo, whatever you call it.
Yeah, it was.
World.
The band was Udo. Obviously, it's Udo, but I mean, this is as much Accept as anything Accept put out. So.
Oh yeah.
And
I got into Udo much later, but this wasn't one of the ones that I was super into.
And I think
because I don't recognize anything.
If I'm not mistaken, a bunch of the members on the bands of this one were in Warlock, and they ended up playing for Udo at the time. But
and I don't have any. Oh wait, hold on. Steven Schwartzman on drums, Thomas Smasinski on bass,
who's on
Matthias Dieth, on guitars, and Udo on all vocals.
But
if they were in a Warlock, I don't know. Some of them sound German.
To me, this just sounds like Accept. I mean, you could have.
How can it not with Udo at the mic?
But even the music, you know what I mean? It just is. But every song on here is great. Stranger's awesome. Heart of Gold is awesome. Future Land is awesome. It's just a solid album. Trip to Nowhere. There's not a bad song on here. It was just Udo being Udo. It's except, you know, without the name on it.
And my introduction to Udo was Man and Machine, which came a few years after this one. And then I sort of went retro and
basically
investigated all the others.
If you like Animal House, you'll like this one. It's very similar vibe.
Animal House.
So now we're on 28.
Did it. Yep, 28. Oh, we got two different covers. We've got the original and the repress.
The first
Tourniquet
album from Ted Kirkpatrick and Company.
Stop the Bleeding.
Stop the Bleeding. This is another one. Like I told you, this was a big year for me. I'm looking for new music because I'm a metalhead. I love metal, and I got rid of I sold my entire collection. I had a huge collection of vinyl. Didn't have any CDs at the time. It was 1990. CDs were fairly new, but I sold off all my records to this record store, and I was taking some of the money, and I'd go to this record store, sell my records, and I'd take some of the money, go to the Christian bookstore, and I'd ask Robert, hey, what you got this new? It's metal.
And didn't the rest go towards a down payment on a house?
Yep, the rest on the house. Yep,
that's kind of cool.
But he said,
this
hey,
house?
Huh? No, our first
okay.
house. It was like an 800 square foot little teeny home.
Oh, wow.
We bought it for $45,000, and then sold it 7 years later for $80,000.
Wow.
And then we took that money and put it into this house. Anyhow, so Tourniquet. So yeah, he threw the CD at me. It wasn't a record at the time. He's like, just got this in today. He was listen to it. You're gonna love it. Yeah, this is great. This is
original singer on here, right? Guy Ritter.
Almost thrash metal, pushing the boundaries of thrash at times. It's King Diamond-ish vocals at times. There's not a song on here I don't love. And
the one that I'm most familiar with was "You Get What You Pray For."
You get what you pray for. Yes.
And that's what it's there for. But oh,
yep.
You gotta believe.
And then Ark of Suffering, I believe they did a video that they showed a couple times on MTV, and then it got banned on MTV.
Why?
Because it was Ark of Suffering is a song, anti-animal abuse song, and they had all these.
It is.
They had all these images of, you know, animals in cages and being tested, showing it. Because Ted Kirkpatrick had some kind of involvement in that at one point. So he had all this videos.
I thought that was something you got into later.
No, every album had at least one song on there about animal abuse. So
okay.
Anyhow, I think that's the correct song, Ark of Suffering. Yeah. Anyhow, the video didn't get much play, but it did get put on a couple of compilations and that kind of thing. So yeah, Monkeys.
Yeah, in fact, I think You Get What You Pray For was on one of those hot metal compilations, Hot Metal Summer.
Yep, exactly.
Like
matter of fact, the video was on the Hot Metal Summer video compilation, the VHS.
Okay. All right. Number. I'm trying to do my job here. My tools aren't cooperating. Number 27. This is all you.
I mean, what we got? It's Death. I mean,
it's Death.
It's what more can you say? It's these guys are the. To me, Death was always the first death metal band. I know some people call Possessed the first death metal band, but because they had a song called Death Metal.
But Possessed was black metal.
Possessed was thrash metal.
Because they were satanical.
Yeah. Anyhow, whatever.
And the thing I love best about Possessed is that's where Larry Lalonde came from, and then he joined Primus. I love that. The guitar player.
Yeah. But anyhow, it's classic. It's raw. It's brutal. It's heavy. I mean, what is it? This is 1990, and it's death metal. Who else was doing death metal in 1990? I mean, I think.
And I've never heard this album. So.
And this is album number 3, I believe.
Is it?
Yep, number 3. So, yeah, it's a classic.
The thing I like best about this album, though, is the guy on the cover. Not the creepy preacher, but the guy who he's got his hands on. He just looks so messed up. He's like,
Yeah, you got to remember, this is at the time when all those TV preachers were falling, and from all that crazy stuff, the 700 Club and all that stuff was going on.
The guy looks like he's already dead. It's like, man, poor bastard.
What did it say on his arm?
And they shaved his eyebrows off too, I think.
Or all his hair fell out. I don't know. Oh, it's got Repka's name on there, Ed Repka. So.
Oh, the artist?
Yeah, Ed Repka.
Oh, okay.
You know who Ed Repka is? He's done
he did some Megadeth art. Didn't he?
All the early Megadeth covers. Most of the early Megadeth covers. But yeah, if you're a thrash band, you have to have an Ed Repka cover. So there you go.
There you go.
And
he looks. It's harder to tell because Vic's not on here. But
but yeah, I mean the band's from Florida. Production was outstanding by this time. Spiritual Healing is one of my favorite songs by the band in general. You know who Death is. I don't have to go into this.
Chuck Schuldiner.
who died several years ago from cancer.
Killed by death.
Killed by death.
All right, we are on number... Oh, actually, we're on number 26, and unfortunately, this is on... We're doing 2 years this weekend. I'm hanging out here with Scott, and we're doing 1990, and on the other end of the spectrum, we're doing 1969. While I brought a ton of 1969 vinyl, I forgot to bring my portion of the 1990 vinyl. So, let's see. Oh, I didn't even look this one up. Bad Trog. What it is it's technically we're reviewing two EPs that Soundgarden put out in 1990. One was called Screaming Life, and the other was called FOP, F-O-P-P. I don't recall if FOP stands for something or if it was some...
But I bet you guys know.
Yeah, maybe you do. Put it in the...
They always know.
Yeah, put it in the... All right, so we got... This was actually a compilation of the two that came out. Screaming Life and FOP. And technically that cover is the Screaming Life cover. FOP had a very boring cover. It was all text. But this was the introduction of Soundgarden to the world, basically. And they had a single on... They were on Sub Pop back then, which was a big label out of Seattle and the whole grunge scene as it was burgeoning at this point. And the first 45 had Hunted Down on it. And out of this, I can't say this is my favorite Soundgarden stuff. But Hunted Down obviously is the opening track, and it was a cool one, and Nothing to Say was the B-side. Kingdom of Come, I just thought always was a funny title. And it's followed by Swallow My Pride. So it's kind of...
There was interesting follow-up.
Yeah, there was always something about the way that Soundgarden titled their songs that spoke to me for some reason. I don't know why. If you're just getting into Soundgarden, I wouldn't say this is the one to start with. I would personally start with Ultra Mega OK or Louder Than Love, which were the two follow-up albums to this. But this definitely was, this captured them at the outset when they were first coming on the scene. And, you know, huge in Seattle, obviously, but they hadn't quite broken nationally yet. So that's all I'm going to say about that one.
That's all I got to say about that.
That's all I got to say about that. And now we're on to 25.
The first album from another Florida band.
Ice Earth.
Recorded out of the same studio, I believe, Morrisound Studios as the Death album. But this is John Schaefer's Ice Earth. This is the very first album. I can't remember the name of the singer. I think it was John Adams. Anyhow.
So this was before Ripper joined.
Oh, way before. Yeah,
okay.
Way before. Ripper joined in the 2000s.
Okay.
So anyhow, this is... I love this album. I play this thing over and over and over again. Now, they had recorded a demo before this that was also recorded at Morrisound Studios, and it's so the recording is fantastic on that demo. It's been re-released on CD. I should have grabbed it. I have it on vinyl and everything, but...
It's all right.
The thing is that the album wasn't quite as good as the demo. It didn't have the same energy, but...
That happened a lot back then.
Yeah, but and that's what John always said about it. I never disliked it. So I mean, every song on here is a classic. I mean, I think every single one of these songs they probably played live. But of course, it's got their self-titled Ice Earth song on here, and the song Colors is one of their. They still play that one live to this day. So then I also love Solitude and Funeral. It's just great, straightforward heavy metal. Some people call them power metal. Some people call them U.S. power metal. Some people call them thrash. I wouldn't call them thrash by any stretch of the imagination, but it's got a very thrashy cover. This is the original cover, by the way. I should have grabbed the other cover, but...
I can sit here and ramble on about an album I know very little. Look at this. Well, what's on the cover? What do we have? We have Mr. Green Demon.
Nah, it's okay.
Attacking Mr. Red Angel guy. Whatever. I'm not sure what exactly is going on. That looks like it's the same cover. Oh, that's the one I'm familiar with. Yeah. I prefer that cover. That's kind of cool.
This is the original cover. This is actually a European pressing of the original CD, and this is an original American pressing both on Century Media Records.
I like the blue one better.
So,
kind of cool
with the angel falling.
Yeah.
And since this time, this album has actually come out with 2 or 3 other covers. So yeah.
Why change it that many times?
You got me.
Oh,
whatever. Anyhow, I don't really want. I understand that people are not happy with John Schaefer at the moment, but That's not the point. I like the music.
Yeah,
that's the point.
Maybe we should just not get into that.
Yeah, we'll just keep it in the keep it in the music there.
Yeah, we've certainly heard our share of all that shit in the past couple of years. So, all right, now we are on number, and I apologize for this. I really feel like a dumbass for getting these records because I was psyched to bring them. Oh well, 2 years off. We got out of the habit. All right, this is actually one of my favorite bands. The next one is 1990 release for Killing Joke from the UK. Pre-industrial post-punk band that I just absolutely love. This album...
What year did Killing Joke start around? I mean, they were...
First album came out in, I want to say 1980, but they had a couple of like 12-inch and single releases prior. I want to say 77 to 79 were just like some singles that they put out.
Yeah.
Very unique band. For some, I would say more of a acquired taste for some, maybe. But they're the only band I really know that they get heavier as they get older, instead of the other way around. And this album was kind of, it had been a few years since their previous one. And so this was kind of like a comeback for them in 1990. Real big in the 80s. They had a huge album in 86 called Brighter Than a Thousand Suns. That was probably their most successful album. They had a huge single on MTV called Love Like Blood.
Did Metallica cover a Killing Joke song?
Yes, they did. In fact, Metallica didn't turn me on to Killing Joke, which I've always been kind of proud of that fact. Just like they didn't turn me on to Diamond Head. But the first Killing Joke song I ever heard was on MTV. It was 84. It was a single of the song 80s. Prior to the Nightlife album coming out the next year. And that song, I loved it. I looked for it everywhere, could not find that damn song for years. Because it wasn't on the album yet. It was only out as a single, and usually only in the UK. So it took me years to finally find it. Killing Joke was a band that like for 20 years I was like getting into them slowly and slowly. Then I heard The Weight by Metallica on the 598 EP. And I'm like, ooh, more Killing Joke. I like Killing Joke. So I just like a little bit more. I kept getting into them. But it's almost like I wasn't ready for them. And I had to kind of grow up and into them. This one, track list, let's see what we got. Money's Not Our God's the opener. It's a great freaking song. Awesome tune. What else is on here? I absolutely
Sounds like a biblical song.
It's a great song. You got to hear it. I wish I could play it for you right now. That's probably the big one on here. But they've just got this real... It's hard to describe them because they went through some kind of sound changes, but they've always been firmly in the punk camp. But there's keyboards going on, so they definitely had that kind of pre-industrial thing going on. And like I said, they just keep getting heavier with every album. I just saw them 2 or 3 years ago at Punk Rock Bowling up in Vegas, and they're friggin' awesome. If you want something a little bit different, out of the norm, check out some Killing Joke for sure. I would say their first 4 or 5 albums are essential for their earlier sound. And then from about this point onward, they just kept getting heavier with every album. So they absolutely sound like metal in some places for sure. And Jazz Coleman has such a gravelly voice now, and it's super passionate. I love these guys. I could ramble on about them for hours. Killing Joke, Extremities, what is it? Extremities, Dirt, and Repressed Emotions, something like that. And
I think we have 2 of these too, don't we?
Oh yes, we do.
Not that they're much different.
So we are now. Oh, actually, you know what? We're not even here yet because there's another one I got to talk about first.
Okay. Go for it.
And again, I feel like a dumbass doing it this way, but all right. So you might be familiar with the band KYUSS, which kind of ruled the '90s in the desert rock, kind of stoner kind of sound. They were called Sons of KYUSS prior to becoming KYUSS, and their first EP came out in 1990. A lot of the songs were redone on their first album, which was basically called Wretch. A lot of the earlier versions appeared on this. I can't say this is one of my favorites. I prefer it's just a rawer version of what they went on to be, which they're already pretty raw. Just that real desert heavy riffing vibe from what's his nuts on guitar.
Yep, him.
Josh Holm. He's a riff master. He's not Iommi, but he's got his own style, and he comes up with great riffs. It's definitely worth checking out, but I wouldn't say it's an absolute keeper unless you're a completist. But it's pretty cool. Definitely a beginning of a resurgence of like that Sabbath sound in the 90s. A lot of bands kind of jumped on that bandwagon.
Yep, the retro, almost a stoner rock kind of thing.
Yep. Sons of KYUSS, and for those of you who don't know, KYUSS was a character that one of the guys in the band invented for while he was playing Dungeons and Dragons. It was named his character KYUSS. The more you know. Rainbow. All right, now we're on to this one, which is number 22.
Man, we're cruising through these things pretty quick.
Yeah.
No Prayer for the Dying, Iron Maiden.
Iron Maiden.
I don't know. I like Iron Maiden a lot.
There's a couple tracks on
There's
here.
no beating those first 5 albums. There just is no beating those first 5 albums.
Oh no, absolutely not. This was a different one because it was all of a sudden it was the 90s, and Iron Maiden's still around. And there's definitely some tracks on here I dug. Holy Smoke's a great track.
Oh yeah. Tail Gunner's a good track.
Yeah, Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter was, I think, was the first single.
Yeah, and that wasn't even that was actually a song that had already been released by Bruce Dickinson as a solo song.
Oh, had he already had solo work by this time?
He had done this song as a single that went into a movie soundtrack, and then
I didn't realize that.
When what's his name heard the track. Steve Harris heard the track. He was like, "I want that as a Maiden song," so it ended up becoming a Maiden song. So,
and we've got both of these covers are the original cover, uncensored.
yes,
The ones later on, they took the guy out, the scared-looking gravedigger guy, whoever he is, and it was just Eddie busting out of the tomb.
Yep. But yeah, I don't know why I grabbed them both. They're almost identical. One is just a new remastered version, which sounds great, and that's just an original pressing that I've had forever. So.
Yep.
I
don't have this on vinyl. I think I have it on CD only.
But that's a good album.
When it came out, like I said, I wasn't really all that into metal at the time. So it was more of a curiosity. I was like, oh, Maiden's got a new album.
Yep.
And it's funny, they got a song called Fate's Warning on here.
Yeah. it's also, that's the same thing for me. Like, he was just on the metal. For me, I was just listening to a lot of Christian stuff.
Right.
So I was aware it was a Maiden. So, but I didn't give it the time I would have given any normally.
Yeah.
So,
and I was exploring a lot of different areas, including Christian music at that time. I didn't really discover like Christian metal for a few years, but I found a lot of interesting stuff that I probably wouldn't have heard otherwise.